Now that we've done some basic printing of a few variable types and learned how they work in fairly good detail, as well as syntax and whitespace, let's look at one of the core concepts of any programming language and programs and what most beginner and early programs are made of: mathematics. A lot of programs will involve a vast amount of math, and really most core concepts can be broken down into math. For example, let's say we want to find all even numbers in a sequence. All we have to do is divide them all by 2, and if the remainder is 0, then if it's true, it's an even number. So with that out of the way, remember our motto: create your way, and let's get started. So we have some of the core mathematic operators that we can do in Python and most other languages. We have, of course, addition. We have, of course, subtraction. We have multiplication. We have division. And we have a few other ones that get a bit more complicated per se. So we have exponents, which are a little bit different in Python compared to other languages. So exponents are like so. You would go 2 to the power of 3 to get the result of 8. We also have what's called a modulo, and that's the percent sign. So if you went 5 modulo 2, that would be like doing what is the remainder of 5 divided by 2. So we would get the result of 1. 5 divided by 2 gives us just over 2, because 5 divided by 2, we know that 4 fits in there. That's 2 2's, so that gives us 2. But we have the remainder of 1 left over, because 5 minus 4 is 1. So that's how that works. So we have mod, and that's another way to find an even number. If we go 4 divided by 2, or sorry, 4 mod 2, we know that that will result in 0 remainder, and so that means it's equal to even. There are a few others that you can use, but these are the basic 6 that you will work with in mathematics. Now, going back on syntax a little bit, when it comes to math, we remember from school, of course, BEDMAS. That is brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction, in that order. So when you have some sort of formula or whatever, then you need to follow the BEDMAS to know what order it goes in. However, since brackets are the first, and that follows in any programming language, it's best to remember to always keep things together in brackets. So if I want 1 plus 2 to be added to 5 times 8, it's best to put it in brackets like that. And you'll also usually want inside and outside brackets to keep it nice and clean. So I know very clearly that I'm taking the addition of 1 plus 2 and I'm adding it to the multiplication of 5 times 8. So when in doubt, use lots of brackets to organize math. So that's going to save you a lot of heartache and troubles when your math doesn't quite go right. I mean, as many brackets as you need to make your equation clean and readable and work every time the right way, make it happen. You can use as many brackets as you want. So technically we have created variables here. We have a variable called addition that's equal to 1 plus 2, and so on and so forth. So at this point we could go back to our print statement and we could print any of these variables. So if we print sub, we get -1. And it's really as easy as that. Of course, I could go 1 plus 2 but that's only going to exist in this print statement, whereas sub is available at any time. I can print sub, I can print sub minus addition, which I've spelt wrong, and so on and so forth. So you can practice with any of the standard 6 math operators or operands that you want. However, I want to just emphasize Modulo a little bit. Let's give this a comment. Modulo. Same thing. And actually comparison is double equal sign. So, something like, say, 10 mod or modulo 3, what would that give you, do you think? Well, let's find out. That gives us 1, because 3 goes into 10 3 times for 9. 10 minus 9 gives us 1. If we go 6 mod 1, that gives us 0, because 1 goes into 6 times, leaving us 0 remainder. So it's just how much remainder. And so that'll be used, like I said, very often. If you're checking for odd or even, you can say 5 mod 2, is that odd? If it comes out 0, it's odd, or even, sorry, otherwise it's not, it's odd. So that's an easy way to find odd or even. Moving on. So let's use what we've learned with variables and the basic math operands to create our first useful program. A very common one. You may see it as an app on your phone, and it's commonly taught as a very first program for programming classes, and that is a tip calculator, because tips can vary depending on how much you feel like tipping and the country you're in. And it helps you work with percentages, it helps you work with variables, and it helps you work with different math operands. So we can give ourselves a multi-line comment. Remember, a triple quote. We're going to say this program calculates the total cost of our dinner at a restaurant after a tip. So, first of all, we're going to define our variables. So, we're going to have our tip percentage. So, let's say that we've really liked our meal and we're going to tip them, say, 20%. So, you would think to type in 20, and that can work, but really percentages are usually defined as a decimal. So remember, that has to be a float, and remember what the issues we can get into with floats. However, if you wanted to use 20, you can always just take the final answer and divide it by 100 to get 0.20. So our tip is going to be 20%. Let's say we have a sales tax. So tax equals, now it's 5% where I live, so let's just say 5. That's also in percent. So again, I should be going like so. That's 50%, 0.05. And then the total cost of our dinner. So dinner equals, let's say it's a $28.35 meal. So how do we calculate everything? Well, we know the total cost of our dinner, so we can say print, open and close brackets, double quotes. We'll say your meal cost, and then put a space, and then we're going to go plus, because we're going to add something to it, plus dinner. So let's see what that gives us. So cannot concatenate string and float object. So what this means is the compiler, Python, is trying to think it's thinking that we're trying to add up this string, this sentence, with the value of dinner. We're trying to add them together is what it thinks. So remember last time how we did the int 3.14 whatever, and it turned into 3? What we need to do in this instance is we need to turn dinner into a string. So what we do in that case is str and put it in brackets, and that will convert dinner into a string. So str dinner is actually equal to the same as if I had put 28.35. However, if I had just typed that, then I would have to go in and manually change that if I changed the cost of dinner. Whereas if we leave it in there, then we can just simply change it up here and it will reflect anywhere else in our program. So let's say our dinner actually costs $23 now. So now we can run this and we get your meal cost $23.35. And if we want, we can even add a $sign, and there you have it. So print out the initial cost of dinner. Next, let's calculate tax. So calculate tax. And notice I'm leaving a lot of comments so that I know exactly what everything does. So we're going to print tax. And so let's first print how much tax is on dinner. So that's going to be dinner times tax. Now remember to put everything in brackets so that it keeps it nice and clean. And then we need our closing bracket for the print statement. Now remember that's going to give us an error though again, so we need to turn it into a string, and we'll put that in brackets. And if you want to keep it clean, you can add extra spaces, whatever you find best. So now when we run that, I guess it doesn't like white space there. Oh, that's why I'm totally forgetting something as usual. A plus sign. So our tax is $1.16.75. And if we wanted, we could round that, but we'll just leave the floating point precision in there. So tax. Then let's do tax plus dinner. So print string. So we're turning this into a string. It's called a cast or a data type cast. So we're gonna cast dinner times tax plus dinner. We'll put that in brackets and close it to close the string cast, and then the print statement. Notice that highlights what we're working with. So this will be, I'm gonna put two quotes in there and a plus. So meal with tax. Let's try that out. So now we have our total meal with tax. Now let's figure out how much with the tip. So tip, print tip, oops, 20% tip plus, and so we know our tip is tip times, now we want to multiply it by the entire cost of the meal, including tax. So let's just copy this from up here. Tip times that, and then we'll put that in its own bracket. And then the closing bracket for the print string. I think I've added one too many. Yep. Or one too few. I have my string cast statement before or inside of the math, which cannot happen. It has to happen first. So now we should get, there we go, 20% tip. So now we can go total cost. So print your meal with a 20% tip costs. So let's add everything up. So we need our string conversion and then our closing bracket for the print. So we're gonna need the total cost of dinner, which we know is dinner times tax, which is then multiplied by tip, plus dinner. Put those in brackets so that we know it's dinner times tax plus dinner times tip. So let's make sure it looks like it adds up. I've forgotten something, probably a bracket. Yep, there we go. Obviously our meal does not cost $4, so where have we gone wrong? So we have dinner times tax to give us our cost of tax plus dinner plus that times tip. So we need all of that again. Putting this in brackets so we don't lose it. Now notice how this can become very confusing very quickly. I'm going to show you how to go get around that in a minute. So our total cost is $29.42. So we have a lot of brackets going on here, and it gets very confusing very quickly. How can we fix that? Well, what we can do is we can simply change how we're creating this a little bit. We can print out the initial cost of dinner. Okay, that's easy enough. Calculate tax. So we can say tax equals tax times dinner. We know that. So now if we print out just simply tax, let's run the program. Our tax stays the same. So what we're doing is, remember how I said you can change variables after the fact? So what we're doing is we're saying tax is now equal to what tax was before times dinner. So that makes that a lot simpler. We can get rid of all of these brackets now. So the same with dinner. We can say tax plus dinner. So we can't make a variable called tax plus dinner though. So we need to say dinner with tax equals tax plus dinner. So now instead of all of this, we can just say dinner with tax. So similarly with tip, we can say tip equals dinner with tax times tip. And then we can just do tip. And then lastly, total cost. So tonight's dinner equals tip plus dinner. So let's print that out and let's see if we get the same results. So tonight's dinner, we'll run it. Now what have I done wrong here? I have forgotten a bracket. There we are. And it's still bugging me about this. I'm not quite too sure, so we're just gonna say total W tip. So we'll just change that total W tip, and down here total W tip, and run that. Okay, why are you being a bugger? For some reason it wants it on that line. So this is where white space is causing an issue for some reason. And that would be because I forgot another bracket up here. So that was never finished, so it thought that we needed an indentation because it thought that it was part of this print statement up here. So now we could go back and write the way we originally had. Tip equals tip times dinner times tax. Tip. There we go. So we run that. I've forgotten yet another bracket. There we are. So let's see. We get a much different result. This time we have $28. So where do we go wrong? So we have our meal cost, $23.35. Our tax, $1.16. Our meal with tax comes out fine. Our 20% tip. So what's happening here is that it's not getting the right version of tip, because if we remove that and print it out, we're going to get back to the base value. So where are we missing the difference? Well, let's see if we can find out using program. We can print the total that we got originally minus 28.2535. Let's find out how much difference there is. So 1.1675. So it's forgetting to add the tax on. So tip plus dinner plus tax. Of course that makes sense. So plus tax. So now let's see if we get the right answer. There we go. 29.421. Just the same as up here. But now there's even more ways that we could simplify this. When you say tip is equal to tip times dinner with tax, that tip is there twice. It's not needed twice. There's a trick you can use, which is I guess printed out multiply equal. So what that means the exact same thing. If I run this, as you can see, we get the exact same answer. So you can just say a variable. So x times equal y is exactly the same as x equals x times y. And this works with anything. Just replace the asterisk for multiplication with a plus sign, a minus sign, a modulo, whatever. And so that can make things a lot easier. So for example, the tax is up here twice, so we can say times equal dinner, like so. And of course, we could even go so far as to just simply print your meal costs and do all the math at once. Make sure I'm not forgetting brackets this time. We can just go dinner times tax in brackets plus dinner times tip. So that gives us the total tax, the total tip, plus dinner. So let's see if we get the same answer. I'm forgetting another bracket, of course. Actually, I'm forgetting the plus sign again. There we go, that's the right number. So that obviously came off way wrong. So why is that? That is because we didn't use brackets properly. We want dinner plus dinner times tax plus dinner times tip. So these need to be in their own set of brackets. And I think it's throwing it off because of all this extra stuff here. If we just go like that, there we go. So we get the right it was right the first time. It was just because we were setting the variables to different values. So you can do something like that to make it much more simple. So a few little tricks there. And we could simplify it one step further by adding in another variable called total. And total, as we know, is equal to dinner plus, well, we know dinner is equal to that plus, actually the easiest way to do this would to be like so, and then say so before tip equals dinner plus dinner times tax, total equals before tip plus dinner times tip. So now if we just simply replace a huge line there with total, we get the same answer yet again. So it's all just a simple matter of assigning with the equal signs. And when you're not sure of which math operator comes first, just make sure to put things in brackets to keep it nice and organized. As you can see, that won't affect the outcome. And we've also learned that when you're printing out a message, yes, you can print a simple variable like that. Yes, you can print a message like this. But when we're doing something a bit more complicated, when we're printing a message plus a number, that's not going to work. If we try to do that, number is not defined. We need to set number first. Number equals 5. We see that we get an error. That's because number is not the same as message. We have two different data types here. So what we have is message, which is a string, going back to variables, and number, which is an integer. So those are not compatible. So what we need to do is convert number to a string by casting. So string with our integer in brackets will turn it into a string. Now, not everything is compatible with each other, but for the most part they are. So what we're doing is we are casting number into a string data type variable. So now when I run that, it works just fine. Message 5. So that is the basics of the 6 standard math operands and our very first program, a tip calculator. So hopefully you've learned something from this episode. And again, let me know if you find the videos are too short, too long, too complicated, too simple, not detailed enough, too detailed, etc., so that I can improve my videos in the future based on your community input. So thanks again from the team here at BlenderTek, and remember, create your way, and we'll see you guys next time.